Magyar Nagadic, also known as the Hungarian Grand Prix, is on this weekend, guys. But which drivers am I going to be paying special attention to in the final race this season before the summer break? The Hungarian Grand Prix is a very, very difficult track. It sorts the boys out from the men, but who is going to come out looking ever stronger around the Hungaroring? Well, here are 5 drivers that I think have interesting stories that you should be paying attention to this weekend. And we're going to start with Sir Lewis Hamilton, because of course, very mixed weekend, to put it very politely and charitably, at the Belgian Grand Prix. Very poor during sprint qualifying, the sprint race and qualifying, but in the race he was looking great. He was looking really good, really back to his best almost at that point, or at least one of his better performances in the Ferrari this season. The Hungarian Grand Prix is one of Hamilton's best on the calendar. He's won here 8 times in total, which is of course the outright record for the track. And it's one of the highest tallies out of anybody out of any Grand Prix in the history of Formula 1. If he's going to get that first podium in a Ferrari, it would be very symbolic for it to be here. He got his first win for Mercedes here in 2013. He got one of his first victories in Formula 1 here in 2007. He always goes well here. It's very rare you see him not on the podium here. So can he do it this weekend? Well, he'll be hoping so. He needs to get a better qualifying. It's very difficult to overtake during the race, and he did struggle to overtake Alex Albon at the Belgian Grand Prix as well. In fact, he failed to do so, of course. Didn't get past him in the end. So he needs a good qualifying, but if he gets that, he's very much a danger for at least a podium this weekend. Next up, I'm going to talk about Max Verstappen. Verstappen's had a tricky few races, to say the very least. He went for a wet setup during the Belgian Grand Prix, and unfortunately for him, did not pay off. They basically delayed the start, the track started to dry out, and it disadvantaged Max Verstappen. Got 4th place. He's currently on his longest podiumless streak in a very long time. I think since 2016. He's not had a podium in 3 races, which the consistency of the guy to manage that is absolutely incredible. But nonetheless, he's not been on the podium for quite some time, albeit of course he did win the sprint race at Belgium. So if he gets a good qualifying, and you know, he's a guy who's been able to put his car onto pole position at times, he could really get the elbows out and make it awkward for the McLarens, who of course failed to overtake him during the sprint race. If the McLarens get out front, they're gone. They're absolutely gone. This was one of their strongest performances as well last season, and they are regularly winning races now by 30 seconds. Honestly, they could win by 40 seconds, 50 seconds at this rate. It could be absolutely ridiculous. But if Verstappen gets out in front at the start, he can make it awkward. And let's not forget as well, if things aren't going well for Verstappen, this was very much the scene of a bit of a meltdown for him last year. So he'll need to keep his cool in what it can be one of the hottest races of the year. I know, I went there 8 years ago. Beautiful race, beautiful track, but my God, was it hot. I looked like a lobster by the end of it. I looked as red as a Ferrari shirt. It was not a good look for sure. But let's talk about Carlos Sainz next. Mixed weekend for him at Belgium. Very good in the sprint, very average during the race. He needs to get a bit more consistency in that Williams. And Williams, to be fair, have been looking better. Alex Albon, very credible 6th place during the Belgian Grand Prix. Sainz ended up, what was it, like 5th, 6th, something like that in the sprint. So some more points there. They're back on form, as it were. They're looking a lot better. And if they qualify well, they'll be looking good for some strong points and really solidify that 5th place in the championship. Sainz needs to get a good result. He was pretty decent round here last season in the Ferrari, so hopefully he can do the same this weekend on his first Hungarian Grand Prix, driving for Williams. But from one Spaniard to another, from Carlito to Fernando. Let's talk about Fernando Alonso. Alonso's got a strange record around Hungary. I was surprised to see that he's only won here once in his career. In fact, it was his first ever victory all the way back in 2003, before certain drivers like Ollie Behrman and Kimi Antonelli were even born. So that tells you how long ago it was. 22 years ago, he won his first ever race in Formula 1 here, and he was absolutely on it like a car bonnet. He was unstoppable in the Renault that weekend, and it was very much a prelude, a preview to the dominant form we'd see from him in 2005 and 2006 on the way to his 2 and so far only World Championships. Although 2 World Championships isn't bad, is it really, to be honest? But Alonso, how's he going to get on this weekend? Because Aston Martin look absolutely dire in Belgium. You know, they didn't look too bad at Silverstone, particularly in the hands of Lance Stroll, surprisingly. And again, we had cold, tricky, wet conditions at Spa. But the car was absolutely useless. They were basically at the back the entire weekend. They need a miracle. They really do. It's a very different track at Hungary. Very high downforce. But is this a track that's going to suit the car? Do they do well around these tracks? Not really, not typically. It's more the fast-flowing circuits they do better at, in fairness. So we'll see what happens, guys. If anybody can get that car to a surprise points finish, it is Alonso. And I mentioned about Verstappen having a meltdown. Of course, 12 months ago, Alonso had a bit of a meltdown as well after the Grand Prix. He was not a happy bunny at all after being told to move aside for Lance Stroll, and then Stroll not repaying the favour. But that's a video for a year ago that I already did, I believe, so check it out if you haven't already. Should still be on the YouTube channel. But the last driver I'm going to speak about, I'm wearing a McLaren shirt, so I need to talk about McLaren. The champions elect in both the constructors and the drivers. No chance anybody's catching them, absolutely not. Lando Norris, though, I'm going to highlight him instead of Oscar Piastri because tables have turned again. You know, I said before the Belgian Grand Prix, Piastri needed to win. He needed to lay a marker down. He needed to beat Lando Norris. Of course, Norris getting back-to-back victories in the same season for the first time in his career. And he did. He won the Grand Prix. He came second in the sprint. He was ahead of Norris, so he gains 8 points on his teammate as a result. This, though, is a bit of an interesting one coming in for McLaren because I fully expect them to be dominant just like they were 12 months ago. Piastri won his first Grand Prix here 12 months ago, lest we forget. But he did so partly because Lando Norris let him through. Now, I said at the time that I thought that was the right thing to do. Norris went about it in the wrong way, in my opinion. He should have let him go earlier and then given him a chance to actually catch up to Piastri, to try and pass him later in the race. The way he did it so late on gave himself basically no time to try and re-overtake his teammate. So, what's going to happen this time around? Well, I'm expecting it to be close between the two of them. I'm expecting them to be well clear of the pack. Like I said, they are regularly winning races by half a minute or so. So it's going to really between these two for the victory. I don't think anybody else is going to be close unless we see Max Verstappen just incredibly get a pole position or something like that. That's the only thing that can stop it. Team orders though, papaya rules. How will it play out? I'm sure it'll be entertaining for sure. Tempers can really flare around the absolutely searing heat of the Hungaroring. It's not uncommon at all. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Which driver are you looking out for? Who do you think's going to win? For me, let's go Norris. Let's make it interesting. He might see it as revenge for 12 months ago. Whether you think that's the right kind of attitude to have or not, I'll leave that to you in the comments. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see more of this, guys. Have a fantastic day wherever in the world today, and we'll see you very soon.